I made a mistake. You should just be still, act like a stool.
Wait! Howdy, guys!
Quiet. Nope, stools don't talk.
Come sit on me!
Stools don't talk.
The Lego Movie is my favorite film of all time, and one of the most rewarding things about the film is how it inspires so much analysis and discussion. This is a double-edged sword, as it also means that there isn't much left to talk about. As I dug deep for a topic to talk about, I came up with the idea of examining what I didn't like about the film. Before I reveal what that is, I do want to note that I'm not the biggest fan of the perception of the further films in the series. The common opinion is that the films become more bland and shallow as the series goes on. I can't disagree with that sentiment more. As I will elaborate further in this retrospective series, there's loads of insight to be mined from the other films. I honestly believe that audiences came to this conclusion due to the inclusion of the live action segment of the first Lego Movie. In this video, I'd like to examine the first film in the series and how the live action segment detracts from discussions and analysis of the other films. I do want to note that this discussion is exclusively a critique from the lens of literary analysis and not on the film as a whole. In a normal viewing, the live action segment builds on the visual identity of the film, expands on the themes, and even makes those themes more approachable to a younger audience. The live action segment does a lot of good, but also does a lot of unintentional bad for the literary discussion of the film and the rest of the series. Before we examine the live action section, I believe it's important to examine the main character of the film and how they contribute to the core themes of confidence and encouragement. Emmet's journey in the film revolves around his struggle to be seen as more than a blank slate. His opinion of himself changes based on how other people perceive him. When he discovers how uninterested his co-workers are in him, his confidence plummets. When Wildstyle dotes on him after discovering he's the special, his confidence skyrockets. Finally, when the other master builders discover how truly mundane he really is, his confidence is completely eroded. Emmet finds the drive to express himself when Vitruvius teaches him not to rely on others for his self-worth. When he stops trying to fit the role everyone else puts on him and instead strives to create what he wants to see in the world, he begins his first steps in developing his identity. His first creation as a master builder wasn't too flashy, however it becomes the only thing to survive the destruction of Cloud Cuckoo Land. While it might seem like Emmet is incapable of developing creative ideas, he actually has a greater understanding of building fundamentals than the other master builders. All the time he spent as a construction worker taught him how to make things that could stick together. The creations of the other master builders are flexible but lack stability. Throughout the film, Emmet learns to find value in all aspects of himself, even when no one else does. In this way, he's able to develop true confidence in himself. Part of that development also comes from the encouragement he receives from the other characters as well. The Master Builders' confidence originally came from their perceived creative superiority over others, but they find true confidence when they encourage others to stoke their creative spirits. The film posits that real connections and change in the world can be made when we develop cycles of encouragement, our confidence in each other compounding, helping everyone to grow together. Just as Emmet explains at the climax of the film, the prophecy is true, but it also isn't. The special does exist, but it also doesn't because everyone has the capacity to be special. It's my personal belief that Emmet was always a master builder. He simply needed to believe that he had the ability to become one. What a nuanced and layered exploration of this captivating character. Too bad none of that matters. My core critique is that the live action segment assimilates the themes and character growth of the animated segments into a story that isn't nearly as developed. The film establishes that Emmet is the avatar of the boy Finn, and that Lord Business is the parallel to his dad. The film up until that point had been a story Finn had created to work throughout his feelings and concerns about his father. From this reveal, the film works to establish this parallel between the Lego story and the real world with its cinematography. The swarming micromanagers soon become symbols of the father's disapproving destruction. There's also Emmet's speech at the end. The staging of the characters helps to sell the idea that Emmet is vocalizing Finn's thoughts and feelings. While there was a lot of thought and effort that went into how this segment contributes to the themes of the film, my main concern is that this parallelism causes the main story we've been watching all this time to seem secondary. Emmet is now not his own character with his own goals and journey. He's now an avatar or symbol. The entirety of his adventure was not in service of his growth, but for a completely different character we don't get to spend a lot of time with. Since Emmet and Lord Business act as avatars for Finn and his dad, they get to take on the character traits and journeys of these characters without having the same amount of screen time. Taking a closer look at the two pairs reveals that there are some issues with this dynamic. For one thing, the emotional relationship between Emmet and Lord Business doesn't really line up with Finn and his dad. Lord Business doesn't even know who Emmet is until he's thrust into his adventure. You could make the argument that this would be symbolic of Finn's distant relationship with his father, but we otherwise have little information beyond what is shown of these two characters to make that reading. Here's another question. Is Emmet really inspired by Lord Business in the same way Finn is inspired by his dad? If it isn't the case, then Emmet's speech reads as a bit disingenuous. Another slightly less serious issue is the reading of Lord Business's character motivation. If we go by the parallels set up by the film, then it's rather astonishing how accurately Finn is able to pick up on his dad's concerns. Lord Business is less concerned with the anarchy of the Master Builders, but instead with his property being used. This reading paints Finn as both an emotionally intelligent and unintelligent individual. He's able to fully understand what specifically makes his father mad, but doesn't seem to know how to express his feelings in a way that doesn't make his father mad. This is a rather idiotic reading, but it comes naturally when I examine the film with the literary lenses it provides. By absorbing Emmet's character growth, the live-action segment creates the illusion of a depth that actually isn't there. It's this illusion of depth that trains the audience to look out for quote-unquote real-world connections as the real story. As these live-action segments become more prominent and integral, audiences disregard the actual stories told as dull or uninspired. This phenomenon is due to the live-action segments often being a small vertical slice of the larger dialogues found in these films. The live-action segments set up or punctuate concepts that get developed in the rest of the film. However, due to the way audiences are conditioned to disregard the animated sections as secondary, they miss out on all they have to offer. Like I mentioned before, this critique is insufficient as an overall examination of these films. The live-action sections are enjoyable and the films would lose something without them. However, I can't say I'm happy with the lack of deeper discussion. Ultimately, this issue has to be solved by the audiences engaging with these films, being motivated by what they've enjoyed to dig deeper. Despite these issues, the LEGO Movie and its subsequent sequels proved to be rich with detail and depth. I do hope that you stick around for the rest of this retrospective to discover the true potential these films have to offer.